Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. We made it another week down. I hope you're having a good day so far. And happy International Women's Day to all of you ladies out there. Today, I have a special treat for you. Renee La Tour is joining me all the way from Argentina. I've known this gal since 2016, and we're going to dive into her story about how she became the fancy nomad. But before we get started, a couple of quick announcements. If you're tuning into this off of LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, also on Renee's LinkedIn, welcome. Hello. Tisha Talks Live is a show where I get to interview entrepreneurs from all around the globe on so many different topics and bring you so much value and tips. So if you have a suggestion on who you'd like me to interview, make sure that you send me a DM and we'll get that going. But if you're out here in the Phoenix area, you know that I host a lot of different connecting events. So coming up on March 27th, I've got my Social Connect Simplified. Think about this as happy hour with your business besties and new faces. No agenda, very casual, buy your own drinks. I'll bring some snacks. But come join us March 27th from 4 to 6 p.m. at Courthouse in Chandler. You can also join my community at socialconnect.world to just interact with other people who come to the events and learn more about what's going on. And then, of course, April 27th, Connecting Through Community is coming up. We are serving Live Love out here in Chandler and beautifying yards for seniors. So seniors just need a little bit of help with trimming and landscaping and all of that. So we're going to be bringing a group of volunteers to be able to do that with us. So you're more than welcome. Space is limited to 20 people. Kids are always welcome. We'd love to have you. So Connecting Through Community on April 27th. So you know how we like to do it on Friday. I like to put up a little dance party and ease into the day and get everybody's happy faces on. So I'll be right back in about 45 seconds. Well, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that dance party. All right, without further ado, I want to bring in my guest. We also have some comments. So before I bring her in, yay, Royce Blake is in the house saying, yay, Tisha time has arrived. Thank you so much, Royce, for being here. All right. So how many of you watching have always wanted to leave your job, your home, and just travel and know that you could make the money that you wanted and have the freedom that you wanted living wherever you wanted? Like, I know I'm like, yes, please tell me how to do that. So today, Renee La Tour is joining me. She is with Ticket to Freedom Consulting. She's joining me from Argentina. And let's welcome her to the show. Hey, Renee, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. So great to be here. Thank you so much, Tisha.
Oh, you're welcome. How is it in Argentina? I should ask, like, what time is it there, first of all?
Good question. Okay, so you would think by now I would have like the whole time zone thing down, but I don't. I have a couple hacks when it comes to that, but here it's almost 3 p.m.
Okay.
And yeah, and down here, like, because I'm south in Argentina, in Bariloche, which is the jumping off point to Patagonia. And so the sun stays up a lot longer than, other parts of the world because we're closer to Antarctica. So it's more, light outside all the way up until like 9 p.m. But one of my hacks is I actually have my PC set to Arizona time because
nice.
Otherwise, like traveling to different countries, it gets too mixed up for me.
That is smart. Like the whole time zone. I was like, I wonder if she's going to make it on time, but you were here bright and early, or I guess in the afternoon for you. Yeah. Well, thanks again for being here. And again, if you were tuning into this on Facebook, LinkedIn or YouTube, make sure you check in, say hi, ask questions, of course, especially if you've been looking to have that nomad lifestyle. And Renee and I are going to get into that. So today we're talking about the biggest bottleneck for entrepreneurs and how to break free. But before we go into that, a little bit of a backstory of how Renee and I met. I used to run an entrepreneurial group here for women called the Gals Inspiration Hub. And Renee had actually gone to some of my meetings when she lived here in Phoenix. And I we were just talking about my holiday hullabaloo and how I have this picture of her with her white elephant gift. So it's been so many years since 8 years since we've known each other. And then we kind of lost touch, but then LinkedIn, the powers of LinkedIn, she reached back out and connected me with one of her friends here, had just moved here, and her friend Jess, shout out to Jess, came to one of my Social Connect Simplified. So it's amazing how connected you can be and still be so many miles apart. And now Renee has lived in all sorts of places. She mentioned that she's in Argentina. So Renee, let's start with that, because there's a lot of time that has passed. Like 8 years have passed since I've last seen you. And like, just fill us in on how you decided to just make that switch, because that's like a hard decision, I would imagine, for someone just be like, you know what, I'm over it, we're leaving, bring your laptop.
Right. And I think it's so beautiful that we're having somewhat of a reunion, because when we first met in 2016, I actually started going to your group before I quit my job, because I knew I had this spiritual yearning, this entrepreneurial spirit within me, but I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. But I knew I needed to start surrounding myself with people who were doing it already. I needed to be around, these powerful, incredible women. Happy Women's Day, to kind of get some of that juice and get those juices flowing. So it's incredible to be talking 8 years later. Like, time really does fly by. And I want to make a point here that things are not overnight. And please I will say that, until I'm blue in the face, is, it's great to kind of look at someone and be like, oh, wow, they're doing this, they're doing that, their business is doing fantastic. They're traveling around the world, but it doesn't happen overnight. It didn't for me anyway. So I'll just tell my own story. Back in 2016, when we met, I was still working my 9 to 5. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. And even when I quit my job, I didn't quit a job I was hating. I loved my job. Like, I loved people that I worked with. I just knew that I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to wait to live the freedom, the version of freedom that I wanted to live, my definition of freedom. And everyone has their own. And I often preach, you'll hear me say this, that being a digital nomad and the life of a nomad is not for everyone, because there are pros and cons to every type of lifestyle. But I knew that I just wanted to have autonomy. I knew that I wasn't meant to be working, a 9 to 5. And some people resonate with that. Like, you just know in your bones, even though time goes by so fast, it's hard to kind of pull back and say, what do I really want? So I really started working on myself. And that happened way before, I started doing that. Like, once I graduated college, all that free time from like learning about, business, or learning, from school books or whatever, went to learning about myself and what I really wanted. And so that journey really did start, I would say, like 2012, 2013, when I really got into self-development. And then fast forward to, quitting my job and kind of plunging into entrepreneurship and not knowing what the heck I was doing.
That's okay. That's okay.
That's why I only stream to LinkedIn. I'm like, I know it's like age
it's age appropriate.
Yeah. And so not knowing what the heck I was going to do, I ended up joining forces with my partner. So my life partner is also my business partner. So we joined forces, and I got into financial services. I won't go down that whole rabbit hole explaining what, where in financial services, and just kind of started hitting the streets, trying to figure out how I could build my own book of business. And I went that route and really saw financial success pretty quickly. Again, financial services is a very lucrative space.
Sure.
And it was about 6 months later that we took a trip to Europe. And up until that point, my partner didn't want to travel much. I always had the travel bug. I always knew we would be traveling. He just wasn't quite interested in it. But that trip to Europe really showed us that we could run our business from anywhere, because it really came down to us running it. No one was going to run it for us while we were gone. We weren't taking, paid time off. And we ended up backpacking through Europe for like 4 weeks. Maybe it was even 6 weeks. I don't remember, but it was a while, and we still had to run in that time zone. But it really showed us we could do that, which kind of sounds funny now, because thankfully, 2020 and these last, few years has really accelerated remote work. For us, that was like eye-opening. And so our entire vision of what we were building shifted into remote first. It shifted into being lean. It shifted into really having laser focus on doing just a few things, so that we weren't working, 8-hour days and that kind of thing.
I love it. All right. I want to say hi to Yolanda is also joining us from Texas. Welcome, Renee. Thank you so much, Yolanda, for being here. Don't be shy. Again, if you guys have questions, if you're tuning into this, make sure you ask those questions or catch us on the replay. I'm also going to recommend you connect with Renee and I'll give her information later. But I love that. So you're not in financial services now, Renee, or you've shifted again? Because I feel like that's like this whole thing with entrepreneurship is where you start isn't always where you end up. You can shift, you can change. You don't have to stay in the same position for the rest of your life, especially if you don't really enjoy it. So, what are you doing now and what is your business? Because you have your business's Ticket to Freedom Consulting. Tell us a little bit more about what kind of work you do.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you bring this up too, because it's so funny. Like again, like when you look back on years past and you thought in that moment, oh my God, things were so messy and I had no idea what I was doing. And then you're gonna look back on these years and you're gonna say the same thing. Like, I was so messy. I didn't know what I was doing. And there's always gonna be like this, you're pushing yourself, you're trying new things, you're pivoting wherever you need to pivot. And so it's funny when I first started kind of this plunge into entrepreneurship, I actually started business coaching. Friends were asking me, hey, how do you do this? I had helped my partner actually launch his business a year prior when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to like filing your LLC, making sure you can hire freelancers, getting your website up. Like we were
Yeah.
all doing, him and I were doing that on Squarespace and stuff. And this was before I even quit my job. So I knew some things when it comes to business and being online and that kind of thing. And so I started business coaching, but I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I'm just helping people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so, to actually start making money, that's when I got into financial services. And then what we've done since then. So when we aligned in 2017, like we're going to be remote first, we're going to close the office, which we ended up doing in 2019. So again, I
Mm-hmm.
want to let you know, this is a journey. This was not like
Right.
we went on this trip and then next week we were digital nomads. No, no, no. We had houses, we had cars, we had garages full of things. I had Christmas decorations. Like we had like physically a lot of stuff. And then
Mm-hmm.
also the business, like we had a different vision for that. We had an office that we needed to shut down and all that. So that didn't come until like the end of 2019. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when we became fully nomadic. So in that transition, we really just constantly and even to this day have taken a lean approach to the business. So that's Dow
Uh-huh.
Financial, which we still run. So my
Okay.
partner and I run that business very lean. It between the two of us, we only work a few hours per week on that business. So
Mm-hmm.
then from there, we started teaching other people how they can get into the same space that we're in. So from there, we have an online course. We did a mastermind program that we launched last year. It was so much fun. We've had like 25 people in that program. So like we've done a lot of fun things, him and I together. And then a few years ago, towards the end of 2021, again, because people started asking me, wait, how are you guys doing this? How are you
Yeah.
only working, a few hours per week? You travel all over the world. You have the financial freedom that you want. Tell me how. And so
Sure.
that's when I started consulting with other solopreneurs, and that's what birthed Ticket to Freedom. So that's really what I focus on personally. And I
Mm-hmm.
do have my hands in these other businesses as well, but it's only a few hours per week that I'm spending on these other businesses. And like you said, an entrepreneur spirit, you can never dim. Like it's always like, okay, I want to try this thing. I want to do
I
this thing.
know.
Yeah.
I know. Renee, I am literally like launching my sixth business. Because I would say that you kind of get a little bit of an addiction. You're like, it's fun. I want to try it. I want to challenge myself. And I've always said that as an entrepreneur, you always want to be learning every single day, be learning something new.
I agree.
You don't know enough. Like you can always be learning something. So getting ready to start another venture that is predominantly going to be like my legacy business and something that would be laptop lifestyle ish. Because I mentioned in the green room, and for those of you watching, that we have a big plan of moving in the next few years. Like my husband just hit his 3-year retirement on March 1st, and it's like the 3-year countdown is happening, and it's so
Wow.
exciting. Like we can't get up and leave quite yet because he works for the city, but oh my gosh, like we're like, how quickly can this come? All right.
So
So I want to
exciting.
talk to you a little bit about that too, because, and this is for my own knowledge. Um, what would be some steps like, okay, so you've made that decision, you want to have this nomadic lifestyle, but you have these things, these hindrances. You have the house, you have the cars, you have the garage full of Christmas decorations. Like, what would you recommend to someone who doesn't want to get so overwhelmed, but knows that they have a timeline, they need to move all this stuff, or they need to shut things down? Like, what was the process that you and your partner took in starting to make that transition and make that move?
Yeah, I love this question because I love using myself as the example. And I jokingly talk about like our first nomadic experience was driving our cars, because we still had our cars, in 2018
Uh-huh.
to San Diego for the summer. So that
Mhm.
was like our first, like, we're going to San Diego. We're going to be going. So if anyone is in Arizona, like if you have the ability to leave for the summer, you leave.
You do. Yeah, you
Like,
absolutely do.
so all the zonies go to San Diego. So we rented an Airbnb for 3 months in Ocean Beach, and we drove our car 6 hours. It's not far at all. And my car was packed, Tisha. It was full. I brought everything, and we're talking summer, but I still felt like I needed to bring my UGG boots just in case. I was like, and
Just
again,
in
it's kind of funny,
case.
just in case. I actually wore them actually. And I was such a materialistic person. Like, if I'm being real, materialistic and very, like, I loved consuming, and I often like shopped to feel better,
Yeah.
if I felt like, some kind of way, I would go shopping and I would just feel temporarily better. So won't go down that rabbit hole, but I had a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
like, yeah, endless closets and things full of stuff. And so my whole car was packed with things. I even brought my printer because I thought, what if I need to print something? Like,
Mhm.
it was ridiculous. And so that was like our first like little experiment. Like, can we legitimately not be in Scottsdale and be able to run our business? So we took it so slow. And there are other
Mm.
people who, like, they just get rid of everything within a matter of months, and they just hit the road with their backpack. And that just wasn't our journey. For
Yeah.
us, I went through a process of years of getting rid of stuff because I had this attachment, one, to things that I already bought. Sunken cost bias is a real thing. So if
Right.
I already, made all these purchases, or these items were meaningful to me, it was really difficult for me to get rid of them. And so I have a couple like tips if you want a tip to get rid of things.
Yes.
So this is my favorite one. And gamify it, like, make it fun. But this is my favorite one. I set out a box and I write a date on it. And that date is 6 months into the future. So
Mm.
you have to be like big Sharpie on all sides so you don't miss it. Write that date, and then
Mhm.
just put all these things in the box. So it doesn't matter. It can be like clothes from your closet, things from your kitchen, whatever it is. You put it in this box. If you have a different box for every area of your house, that works out really well.
Oh, nice.
And then you put it somewhere like the garage. Okay. So you have all these boxes, you leave them open. You can tie them up if you want, or seal them up. I just left them open. And then you go in those boxes as you need those items. So if it's something from your kitchen, maybe it's some kind of special potato peeler, makes these like really fun, like French fries or something. If you haven't gone into that box and picked up that item in 6 months, then it goes. So anything that's still left in that box, when that date, that you wrote in big Sharpie, you box that up and you take it to Goodwill. So that was the way that I got rid of all of that stuff that I had.
I love that. I'm going to utilize that too, because I know that there's so many things, especially in my kitchen. The clothes I'm not as concerned about. I'm like, okay, tank tops, flip flops, things like that. But yeah, like air fryer, totally going with us. Like, there's just some staples that you're like, I need this wherever I go. I don't know about my UGG boots, but definitely the air fryer.
Yeah, that's how I was with Vitamix. I was like, I need my Vitamix. Like, I cannot live without my Vitamix. And so for me personally, it was a process of like downsizing as we went. So even I talk about that summer in San Diego. After those 3 months, I was like, okay, we can do this. And it was still pretty warm in Arizona. So we ended up just deciding last minute, let's go to Central America for, I think it was like 6 weeks or something. So then we just
Uh-huh.
went to Central America. So then we got like more and more comfortable. And then the next year it was like, oh, we're going to be going to, Southeast Asia. And so like we just little steps started to make our trips longer and longer. But when we first started, the plan was we were just going to go away for 6 months. And that's what we did. So we went away for 6 months, and then we would be in Arizona for 6 months. And then from there, the trips just got longer and longer.
And now you're like, no more Arizona.
No, exactly. Like that, I was just there in December just for about a month or so. I love it. Like Arizona is such a special place.
Mhm.
And around that time, like, November, December, it's gorgeous. But there's just so much of the world to see. And so even though I do miss home and I do miss, seeing my friends and family all the time and that kind of thing. Like, again, there are pros and cons. I love this so much. And I invite my friends and family to come meet me wherever, like anywhere I'm at. I'm like, you have a host essentially here. So
Exactly.
yeah. And my mom takes
Exactly.
me up on that offer every time she gets. So she's met us in South Africa, Colombia, Mexico. So yeah, I was telling her we're going to be in Portugal in a few weeks. So I was like, hey, it's going to be perfect timing for you to come up.
Oh, that's perfect. Yes, always a place to come to. All right. I know Yolanda is saying, I need to do that. Speaking of your tip, that's a great tip, Renee. I've never heard of that, like putting boxes and putting it 6 months. I love that tip of just writing the date down 6 months later and just seeing if you even use those products. It's kind of like your closet, right? They've always said like turn the hanger around, and if you don't use it, it's a goner. Like it's a, I don't use this, I'll never wear this again, I haven't worn it for 6 months or a year, I can get rid of this, right? Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Royce has a question for us. What do you look for in a country? And before we get to that, you started naming off a list of the countries that you visited. Can you share, like, so you've said Colombia, you've said Africa. What are some other places, Renee, that you've been able to go as part of this nomadic lifestyle of running your business, laptop lifestyle that you and your partner are doing? So I'm just curious because I'm like, I would love to
Yeah.
know where you've been.
Yeah. So I normally wouldn't count them, but people ask, like, how many countries have you been? So then one day I sat there and I counted through them. So I know I've counted 40 so far. I have to go back to the list and see if there's any new ones that need to be added. But yeah, we've been to, the continent of Africa, Europe, Asia, South America. So it's kind of funny because usually people start with South America because it's very convenient for time zone. So if I have
Right.
a tip for anyone who's like, hey, how do I start? Start in your same time zone. That's what most nomads do, because it just makes sense business wise. And then you can start to, again, because even that process, like we talk about the box process for your personal items, but it's a similar process in your business. Like, okay, you have to set constraints for yourself. If I was only working 1 hour today, what would I work on? So like
Hmm.
these thought experiments and these kind of things to give yourself constraints in your business help
Hmm.
you to have that time freedom so that you can have the location freedom. So that's always my tip, is like start with like, Central America, South America. Like I love that you said you're going to Costa Rica. It's just going to be a
Hmm.
smoother transition.
Sure.
But we didn't do that. Like we didn't come to South America until 2022 for the first time. Like we had not even been, to anything past Panama. So yeah, I love, like, even going back to Europe. I love going to new places. So I don't want to go back to, Italy, or we might stop back in Spain because, we're only there for a few days, which I don't
Yeah.
feel like that counts. So we're going to stop back in a few places that we've been already, but I haven't been to Portugal, so I cannot wait to explore that. Haven't been to Albania, so I want to go to some countries that I haven't been before. But yeah, it's, from Turkey's been one of my favorites. I know I already touched on South Africa. It's such a hidden gem. I love that place. It was cool. It was like kind of mind blowing to go to Egypt. I was like, oh my God, I'm like seeing pyramids. Like, this is crazy. So there's some places that you got to go, and like, don't wait. Don't wait.
Right.
Because I go to these places that, people have on their bucket list, and they're so close to kicking the bucket. They're having a hard time kind of getting around. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, don't wait, just try to go as quickly as you can, because you don't know when your day is going to come, at
Yeah.
any age. You really
You
have no
don't
idea.
know. And I think that's the saddest part is I know a lot of folks who are like, oh, that retirement, that vacation will come in a couple more years. And you're right, their life was cut tragically short, because of illness or whatnot. So I love what you're saying of you really have today. Like you've got today, live for today, go do the things that you want to do. Don't have any regrets. All right. So circling back to Royce's question of what do you look for in a country? And hi to the people joining us on Facebook. Thanks for being here. I would love to know this because, again, if you are planning on making your business, creating it, and not having any disruption in your workflow, what would be some tips that you would share for people if they're like, okay, I want to move here. I should make sure it has internet. I
Right.
should make sure I have a hot spot. Like I should make sure I have these things. Like, can you give us some examples of what you would look for when you're trying to find your next destination that is your workplace too?
Right. Yeah. So that's a biggie. A lot of countries, they don't have the infrastructure yet, or if the countries do, they'll have infrastructure in, maybe the major city, but then not
Right.
the outskirts. So obviously that's an obvious one. You have to make sure that they have the infrastructure for you to work remotely, which is so crazy now because it's just getting better and better. Like we really couldn't live this lifestyle prior to maybe like even 2015.
Hmm.
I know that I've met people who were living this lifestyle, before then, but again, they had less selection of countries that they could work from. So it's getting even easier as this is incredible. Like it's an incredible opportunity for anybody. And I know that there's going to be a lot more digital nomads and remote workers. And my heart really does go out. And I never look at someone who, they're retired and now they're traveling because they didn't have the choice that we have.
Right.
Like we have this like opportunity. And again, also being a first world country, being from, if your business is based in the States, you have arbitrage in a sense that your currency, what you're earning in US dollar, goes a lot further. So there are
Hmm.
countries that the value is incredible. Like I touched on South Africa.
Hmm.
Cape Town specifically is incredible as far as lifestyle and quality of lifestyle. But you do have to see the other side of that. There's a huge
Hmm.
wealth disparity. So
Hmm.
a lot of times people ask me, like, isn't Cape Town, like, it's really dangerous, it's not safe? And I'm like, yeah, let's be real. Like there are, you don't want to go into certain neighborhoods, and it's the same in Brazil. You don't want to go into certain neighborhoods. You want to be really smart. Same thing, in the States, there's pockets
Hmm.
and areas that you don't go to. But with all things considered, I want to answer your question, Royce. I would say once the Wi-Fi thing is covered, quality of life. And
Hmm.
again, when Tisha mentioned the whole fancy nomad thing, and really all that's about is you can live nomadically and have the same creature comforts that you do back home. And I am living proof of that. Like, honestly, the places I stay are incredibly beautiful. And I'm looking out right now into like a lake and mountains and just an incredible view and incredible, meals or whatever. Like here in Argentina, they have great, as you know, steaks and wine. And so I do look for like the quality of life and nice accommodations because I want to be comfortable, especially working from home. You don't want to, be in a space that you're not going to be comfortable being there, right? Like you want to make sure that not only the Wi-Fi, but you have a proper workspace, you have enough space. So I travel with my
Hmm.
partner and people think we're crazy, but we often stay in 2 bedroom plus. So like
Hmm.
anything that's 2 bedroom, 2 bath, because we need the space. Like we want to be able to, walk around and be comfortable because we're here a lot. We're at home a lot.
Right. Right. Thanks so much, Royce, for asking that question. All right. So I know we have a little bit of time left, Renee, and I want to get into the question that this whole this whole talk was. I was just so excited about hearing about your destinations. But we talk about the biggest bottleneck for entrepreneurs and how to break free. So what would you say is the biggest bottleneck that you've experienced that entrepreneurs, you're like, if you could only get this one thing, this would make a total difference in your business?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny. We got on a whole tangent about travel and all that, but it's so related. And again, I'm always really cognizant to say freedom on my terms because I'm living the lifestyle, the freedom lifestyle that I want, but that doesn't mean it's the freedom lifestyle that anyone else wants. It's
Right.
like you defining freedom for yourself. So the biggest bottleneck is often the same bottleneck that you would have in life. So what's applicable to business is often applicable to relationships or applicable to health or whatever it is. And that one thing, a lot of people don't want to hear this, but the one thing is accountability.
Mhm.
And just going back to the definition of that, that's like the willingness to take responsibility for your decisions and what you're choosing to do in life. And everyone, I'm sure that's streaming in, you've read Atomic Habits. You know that whatever failure you have in life or whatever's not working out really does come down to what you're doing every day
Mhm.
in and out. And when you take radical accountability for your life and you say, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I don't care, people aren't going to understand it or whatever. I'm not going to let FOPO. I don't know if you've heard of FOPO, Tisha.
I haven't heard of FOPO, but please
Okay,
do.
so
Please tell.
yes, FOPO is fear of other people's opinions. And
Mm.
it is the biggest fear holding, I know it's the biggest fear holding me back. It's the biggest fear holding probably everyone back, if you're able to just say, I don't care. I'm going to live my life according to what freedom means to me. I'm going to live by my own definition. I'm going to live deeply rooted in my why. And if you take that accountability and then you let that spill into all the other areas of your life, that's going to influence your habits. It's going to influence the systems that you live by. It's going to influence the simplicity that you really are craving in life, those deeper connections with other people. It influences everything. So the one bottleneck is the lack of accountability. So just taking that radical accountability for your life changes everything.
I love that. I love that. So it's funny because I don't know if you saw, Renee, I posted my Monday motivational push, and the sticker was, don't say I'll try, say I will. And I'm also reading Atomic Habits, and I think Royce has read it. I'm not sure if Yolanda's read it, but lots of people have read that book. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish elementary school kids would read this book because it's such a great read. And I posted the other day, so we were talking about in the green room that I just came back from my kickbox class, and on the board they have in there, it says you can have results, or you can have excuses, or you can have results. You can't have both. And that just sticks with me because you're right. I mean, I know so many people that are like, but I, I'm like, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
Like, if you want this, you'll figure this out. You will make sure you get there. You will make sure you do these things. Right. So it's hard. It's hard, especially as, I mean, I know you've done some business coaching, but that's the hardest part is I can't get you to move. You have to internally figure out how you're going to move. I can be your biggest cheerleader. I can encourage you. I can hold you to the fire. I can hold you accountable. But if you're like, nope, I think I'll just sit home today. I don't feel like going to that. That's not on me. It's on you.
Yeah, and I think when that's happening, it's really important for you to just give yourself a little space and really ask yourself, do I want this?
Hmm.
Or is this desire, is this based, and rooted in shoulds? Am I fulfilling someone else's, definition of what a lifestyle should be or what a life well lived means? Because if you're living your life according to someone else, it's not gonna it's not gonna be motivation. It's gonna be this constant cycle of, oh, I'm doing this thing, but I don't feel like doing this thing. I'm doing this thing, it doesn't really feel in alignment. And so you're gonna keep going in these circles
Yeah.
instead of being real with yourself. Like, what do I really want? Because life is short and only one thing is guaranteed. So let's make the most of it. Like, let's really like live, in the juice of life and really be present and really do what the heck you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that too. You're right. So right. Well, and that was one thing I was going to say, and we'll start wrapping this up too, is that you're right. Like, you have a definition of what freedom means to you. It's just like you have a definition of what success means to you. And I know what my version of success is. And I always say, I'm never going to put that on anybody else. I'm going to say, this is what I believe success is. And when I feel like I've arrived at success. And isn't it interesting though that so many people are like, but your should haves, you should be doing this. You should have this much in the bank. You should be. And I'm like, okay, but that's you. Maybe that's what you
Yeah.
want, but you're right. So I love that. I've never heard of FOPO, but now I'm like, let's start using that term. You've got FOPO.
Yeah, it's a big one. And we're social creatures. It's very natural and normal to want to make sure that you're accepted and loved by the tribe. Like, this is something that you should not be ashamed of or
Yeah.
anything. Like, I think the more that we can talk about how FOPO is running our lives, the more that we can shed light on stepping through it and just saying like, all right, yeah, I get it. Like, I am concerned about what people think, but I just have to know that I can't control it. I can't
Yeah.
control if people like me. I can't control if people approve of me or any of that. So since
Yeah.
it's out of my control, I'll just control what I can do and,
Absolutely.
do the things that are in alignment with what I really want. Because when you start to do that, you'll realize there's so much you can cut out. So when it comes down to like only working a couple hours per day on your business, when it comes to having, the flexibility and the freedom to do more of what you really want, it
Hmm.
comes down to doing a lot less. And
I
that's what
know.
people don't think, this, like doing
Hmm.
all of these things, like that's not going to get you where you want to go. And a lot of those things are rooted in FOPO.
Rooted in FOPO. There it is.
Rooted in FOPO, yeah.
There's the line right there. All right, Renee, thank you so much for breaking down that biggest bottleneck. And I agree, accountability is huge. We need more accountability for ourselves too in our actions. And Yolanda, thanks. She said I've read the book. Yeah, I think that book should be on everybody's top five, honestly. along with the Go Giver. I love the Go Giver books. All right, Renee, tell us how people can find you and what you're working on. What country are you heading to next? I know
Yeah.
you're in Argentina right now, but do you have something else that's coming? Like, can you tell us where you're going to be heading to?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can come hang out with me on LinkedIn. Like that's where I love hanging with my LinkedIn peeps. So definitely there. So for travel plans, so we don't plan far in advance. So I don't know if that might change in the future, but for right now, we just kind of plan a couple weeks ahead. We like to keep it flexible. So we'll be in Patagonia off the grid for a little bit in these next week. And then from there, we're going to be heading over to Portugal. So we'll start our European summer in Portugal and then go from there. So I'm super excited about that.
Oh, so much fun. I love it. I'm just going to live vicariously through you for the next few years.
Oh, stop it. You're traveling. Like, again, I think that's like, you're traveling. Like, this is incredible. You're going to the Philippines. I have not been to the Philippines yet, so I'm going to be asking you for tips. But yeah,
Yeah.
and heading over to Costa Rica. This is incredible. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, we are very excited to just make that leap. And as I mentioned, we've had my husband's job, which is here, so he can't leave here until he's done. But we're just like counting the days. We're taking our daughter with us, so she'll be able to experience school in Costa Rica and high school. And I'm like, honey, you are just going to have the most impressive transcript coming from an international academy. Like, you will write your ticket to what college you want to go to because you stand out in a crowd, which is what I love talking about, is how do you stand out in that crowd? So we're so excited. But yes, any tips you can give, keep passing them through, Renee. I know you
Right.
got
Well,
some
get
great ones
started
here.
now because as we talked about, it's not an overnight, snap of the fingers. Like you have a life there, as did we. So, get started now with starting to think, okay, I'm not going to have the time flexibility. What does that mean for my business? Okay, I'm not going to be able to take all these things with me. What do I really need? And you start to
Right?
really dial it in. So that's exciting for
Right.
you.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. And thank you, Renee, for being here today, all the way from Argentina. I just love saying that, all the way from Argentina.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to do this again. And it was just so great to catch up and kind of go down memory lane. Like it's incredible. And I think it's important for people to know, like 8 years, this is a journey we're all on. Like enjoy it. It's a
Right.
long one.
Yes, I know for sure. All right. So Tisha Talks Live. So speaking of creating your own freedom, today marks spring break for the kids. So Tisha Talks Live will not be on for the next few weeks because it's spring break. And I'm like, I think I deserve a break. So we will be back April 1st with my special guest, Kim Boudreaux Smith, with her bold voice. And so you want to tune into that. But thanks so much for being here. If you're catching this on the replay, definitely reach out to Renee if you have any questions about how to create that nomadic lifestyle, how to pick up and leave and still enjoy the freedom and the flexibility from the country that you've always wanted to visit. So I know Yolanda here saying, thanks to both of you. This was refreshing. I love it. And she said, now get started now. Great tip. Yes, get started now. Don't wait. Don't wait. I love that tip too. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch you back next time on Tisha Talks Live in April. We'll see ya.
Bye. Thank you.